we can do some intros and do a few little polls and stuff of the room. So for the next about half hour, okay, hold on, confirm. All right, so today we're talking about developing North Star metrics. We're gonna talk about like about next half hour or maybe 40 minutes. I'll try to leave 20 minutes at the end for questions, though. It seems we can never do that. It seems like we always just go to the end and are like, we'll stay over. So we'll see if we can do it today. Um, but yeah, we're going to talk through how you actually pick the one metric that kind of tells whether your product is really working. And then I'm going to put that in front of, we're going to use Claude Code and show you a couple of things live in the demo. We're partnering with Amplitude on this one. So we're going to be using Claude Code for like the system, but actually everything we're teaching here comes from, well, it comes from like our experience, comes from a bunch of other research that we're pulling in, but actually like the whole kind of like Amplitude, North Star playbook, a lot of the frameworks that the agents and skills and functions that we're going to run in Claude Code today are based on that. It's actually like baked in. And so I'll show you the skills and agents today are a little different than what I usually run. Usually we kind of have a skill that has a bunch of information around it, what it should do, and it might fire off other skills or fire off agents that then fire off helper functions. In this case, a lot of the skills and agents go more in depth to read through research, and that's curated in a knowledge base, read through different rules that apply to different industries when it comes to metrics. There's actually an agent that's called like the North Star librarian, so who will go and make sure that any sort of decision that's made around your metric has some sort of source that will pull up to you as well. I don't know, maybe Hi, if you want to look up the North Star playbook from Amplitude, it might be one of those things where you have to like put your email in and then they'll send it to you, but it's pretty good. Um, so I wouldn't mind. I would recommend reading through that as well, although we're going to talk about it here. To kick things off, though, first, let's do some intros. I think I recognize a lot of the folks here today. You've probably come to some of the other ones, but I'm Sean. I'm a co-founder of the AI Analyst Lab. Um, we do a bunch of free workshops around agentic analytics. We put out a bunch of free kind of like email courses, async stuff around learning how to use agentic analytics. We've done a lot of work primarily with Claude Code, although this past month we're getting a lot more into codecs and open source models as well. We also offer some paid courses. We actually have a boot camp coming up this weekend where you build your own agentic system. It's like a no prereqs required, no code required, teach you how to build your own agentic system. And then a lot of that's primed on like our open source agentic analytics system, the AI Analyst that we've uh, released. I'm sure many of you have access to that repo. And then next week we have a pretty cool course called AI Analytics for Builders, which is like a 5-week course around analytical thinking, but the execution layers in Claude Code. And maybe we'll get into codecs on that one a little bit too. So think of it as like your kind of like, you know, I'm a product data scientist or data analyst, and I want to have analyses that go faster, that go deeper, that go further. This is like that, or I'm a PM or engineer, designer, or banker. We had like a chef in here the other day, actually. And I want to like learn how um, to do analysis, but I need to like understand the frameworks first, and then now you don't have to like do the coding in R, SQL, or Python. You can do it first, Claude Code. So we'll talk more about that later, though. That's us. Hi, you want to do a quick intro about yourself, Sravya?
Yeah. Hey everyone. My name is Hai, co-founder of AI Analyst Lab. As Sean said, we put out a lot of content both on LinkedIn, our emails, and Maven, just like this one. I've got 20 years or so experience in the data science and analytics space, and currently utilizing AI for analytics and agentic systems for analytics quite a bit. Shavi, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Sravya. Sorry I had to be off video. But I have 15 years experience in data science. Started off career at Microsoft and later worked at Nextdoor and most recently Grammarly, which is branded as Superhuman. At Nextdoor is where Sean, Hai, and I met, and that's when we started a bunch of things together. And most recently, AI Analyst Lab, and very excited about the journey that we're taking from here. Yeah, Sean.
Sweet. Sweet. I also just saw Mahalis that you said you're located in Miami and Bali. It sounds tough. It sounds like a tough life. Yeah, it sounds rough. I lived in Indonesia for a couple of years actually, so I spent in East Java, but I would go over to Bali every few months. Um all right, cool. Let me get into it. So, a couple questions before we kick off, just to get a read of the room. We can kind of change the format of this, knowing where people are at. So, first thing here, I just want to see like people's kind of where they're at with Claude Code, where they're at with agentic analytics. So, if you've used Claude Code, if you've never used Claude Code before, put a zero in the chat. If you've used it, but you haven't used it for analytics, put a one. If you used it and it's for analytics, put a two. Cool. We got
Ones
a
and
couple of people
twos.
who haven't used it before, lots of ones. Um, nice. Jeremy, welcome back.
Yeah, ones and
Sweet.
twos.
Well, yeah, a lot of our oh, nice. Hey, I think you get to be a one or a two if you use Codex. We're saying Claude Code. I feel like they had like with the coding stuff a little more of like the first mover thing, but yeah, I feel like Codex is doing the same thing these days. Um, yeah, and then I don't know. This is like a total aside, but I've been talking to a lot of people as we've like been working with some of the other models too. I just feel like the open source model stuff's gonna catch up so fast to the to being able to do what these other things are doing. It's like I think the stuff I'll do today will do like Opus 4.7, but to be honest, it's like 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 Fable in terms of analytics tasks. If you have a agentic harness around it, there's not much of a difference. Definitely some step up if there's like vanilla is asking Claude stuff, but I feel like we're gonna hit some threshold where the models are so good that you know that incremental lift you don't necessarily need it to accomplish what you're doing with your day job. But cool, good spread today. Um, we'll definitely be showing the capability of level two today. And then second one, all right, more on North Star metrics because we're gonna do kind of like some framework discussion here before we even get into analytics. Uh, maybe a zero if you haven't really worked with a North Star metric before, and a one if you have. Um, let's see. Yeah, go connect with Valen. I like the community building. Cool, nice. This is good.
Super
Good even
powerful.
split 50-50.
Yeah.
Nice. So some of this is going to be new. Some of this will be review for people in the beginning. You're one, if you're a one, some of this will be a bit of a review around what North Star metric is, but we want to set the foundation for because there is, I'd say at least half the people in here haven't worked with North Mauritius, zero and one, Nikita. All right, cool. I mean, I know a lot of people who have heard the word North Star metrics that I've worked with who I would say they're basically at the zero level when I see them try to make the metric, but no longer because AI can help them, so they don't have an excuse. Um, yeah, so let's get into it. So where I want to start is like think about your team, your company's kind of like primary dashboards for a second. Um, and this maybe this is a little dramatic, but if it's anything like most, like it's not one metric. It's really easy to add a ton of metrics on there, especially when you like multiple tabs of dashboards going. Sometimes I've seen them like especially some of like the high level ones where it's just like, or even at the very low team level, it's just like 30 or 40 numbers on it. At least most of them have at least like 10. And the question I'd ask is like, for when you look at a dashboard like that, that's like just inundated with all these different metrics on it. Like 40 is dramatic, but say even 10, like how easy is it for your team and for you to all agree and point out one of them and say in a sentence, like, this is the one that tells us that we're winning. A lot of people can't do that. That's why they have so many metrics on there. We track a ton of activity and we kind of call that measurement. And honestly, AI makes that worse, not better, because now you can measure basically anything. So it's easier than ever to pour all your effort into the wrong number or collection of wrong numbers. So what we'll do, I'm going to give you the framework here that companies like Airbnb and Netflix use to pick the one metric that really matters. And then I'll show you how we can use AI to really pressure test that metric live in a demo. And we'll turn like a full year of kind of like raw data into a decision in about, I think demo takes like 5 minutes or something to run through the process. But the problem basically is that a lot of teams measure is activity instead of value. So um, it's really easy to make this mistake. Things like logins or signups or your monthly revenue, those go up and to the right, and it feels really good when that happens. But if you're honest, none of them really tell you whether your customer or your users got more value out of the thing you built, which is like the reason you built it. It's like, like revenue is the reward for us creating the user value, but we build the thing to create the user value. Um, Revenue and whatever is just like a kind of steps removed that says like, oh, that maybe happened. Um, I pay for plenty of subscriptions that I have just like forgotten to unsubscribe from. I'm not getting user value out of them, but some companies getting revenue out of it. So it shows up in two ways, either a vanity metric, so one number that looks impressive but means nothing, like daily active users is a very, very, very common one, or the opposite, a dashboard with like, 30, 40, 50 numbers, and no single one everyone's rallying around. So every team picks their own, and you end up arguing in a lot of these meetings instead of being aligned. And the reason it matters so much is that this metric sits at the very top of everything. Like if the one you picked is wrong, then every decision underneath it inherits that mistake. And you end up shipping things that moves the number without actually moving the customer. So I'll come back to it. Like we're figuring out the right metric. Actually, figuring out the right metric for your own product is week one of what we teach in our AI Analytics for Builders course, starting on Monday. We'll come back and talk to more about that. But like, this isn't an easy thing to do. We're going to talk about it right in like we got 44 more minutes here, but we actually spent an entire week on this topic because it's so important to make that one number correct. Would love to get a poll from the room, like for those of you who said one, or even those for you who said zero, who could think about this, like what's your team's kind of current North Star? Do you have like a clear North Star for your team chat? So conversion rate, conversion, case time, MAU, ROI. You're not gonna like what I say about MAU for the MAU people. And you know what? I'm not gonna say it. AI is gonna say it, so it's not gonna blame me. Loss ratio, nice transaction rate. Cool. All right, we'll keep going. So what actually makes a metric a real North Star? So there's kind of like 7 questions you can go through, and I'm actually gonna send you guys. So this repo and stuff I'm gonna work through is our like plus AI Analyst plus repo. We have an open source one called AI Analyst. Everyone has access to that. This whole North Star thing, which I'll show you later, is in our plus repo. That's currently only open to our course students. I think we might just open source that too, later on. We haven't like decided yet. This North Star stuff, all of it's not pushed to main on that one even yet, actually. We'll probably open source that, but in the meantime, come on, I cannot click on this. I do have this. I'll send this to you guys at the end that kind of has like just like a little worksheet with like some checks around so you can check your own North Star so you don't have to remember all this. But we'll also send us a recording of this too. So what actually makes a metric a real North Star? So 7 questions. Does it capture customer value? Reflect your strategy? Is it leading rather than lagging? Can your team move it? Can a normal person understand it? Can you measure it? And is it free of vanity? And then 4 of those 7 are really real deal breakers. Like you get all 7 of those, and it's like, oh yeah, this thing's strong. But 4 of them are pretty big deal breakers. We'll send the deck out after, James. This is just I don't have it posted anywhere right now, but I'll send the PDF out. So customer value, leading, and can you move it, and not vanity. Those 4 are really important. If you miss any one of those 4, basically your North Star metric, I would say, is out, no matter how it does on the other 3. The easiest way to see is an example of this, right? So an example everyone knows, like Airbnb's North Star is nights booked. And so if you walk it through that checklist, a booked night is real value. Someone's actually staying somewhere. It leads the money instead of trailing behind it. The team can genuinely move that metric, and it's not something you can fake. So it checks all those boxes, and that's why it holds up. I'll tell you, there was a company I once worked for that counted a vanity metric that counted their weekly active users, not just as people who are on the platform, but of people who would just like open any email from them. So it's a very gameable vanity metric, especially when certain like mail things like iOS just automatically say your email's open. So if you just send more emails, suddenly your weekly active users go up. Don't do stuff like that. Definitely don't create that metric and then go public and not be able to change it for years. It makes things very, very hard. North Star metrics are hard enough when you're like internal to your team, but some of these inevitably will get out, trickled out to the board. Now you're reporting something to the board. If it's not hitting those 7 things in a checklist, you're giving bad metrics to the board. If you're a public company and then the board wants to have that like reported on in your whatever quarterly earnings call, now you're just stuck with this thing forever. You have to basically go private in order to get rid of that metric. So it's really important. And all these decisions happen off of it. So let's get a get check from folks here. I kind of already teased this, but daily active users, 1 or 0, good North Star or not. Type 1 for yes, 0 for no. Kevin's like, it's freaking good, man. Shut up, Sean. I guess it depends how you actually define active, which is a very hard thing in itself to define. Because, oh man, yeah, I mean, I've been in months back and forth with people who try and do like a daily active user, and then people are like, oh, but active is like when you do this thing 3 times and this other thing 2 times, and this thing maybe if you don't do this thing, you have to do these other 7 things on that day, then we'll count you as active. It's like, oh God, you have just turned 20 metrics into 1 metric somehow, and that doesn't make any sense. All right, we'll keep going. We're going to come back to this. We're going to have Claude tell us the answer to this. So 1 metric at the top, North Star metric alone isn't enough on its own because you can't reach up and move it directly all the time. What you actually move are things underneath it. These are like input metrics. And there's a simple way to make sure you kind of covered exhaustively all of the input metrics that drive our North Star metric. So there's four kinds, you can think of them as levers. So there's four kinds of levers. There's like how many customers, how much each one of those customers does, how reliably it goes through, and how often they come back. And so those link back to breadth, depth, efficiency, and frequency, BDEF. Those are your levers, and the North Star is the outcome they add up to. So as those levers go up or down, there's probably some metric at your company or multiple metrics that relates to each of these. You'll be able to drive your North Star metric. We don't just work on the BDF ones because those are a lot of them are gameable, but like the North Star metric itself is not. Let's see. Yeah, one thing that trips a lot of people up, your input can't just be like your North Star metric wearing a different hat. This is really easy to do actually. So say you pick like weekly active buyers from your site as your North Star. That's a head count, right? And then for how many customers you write like active buyers, that's basically the same number. So you didn't break it down, you just kind of renamed it. The way out is like to pick a metric you can break into pieces, a count of something happening, like orders or nights booked. Then the levers underneath are real and separate. And in a second, you'll watch a tool catch this mistake on its own. Okay, so let me bring in the AI and I can kind of show you around a little about this, the repo here, and then we're gonna run some stuff. Yeah, so true, Nikita. It all comes back to prioritization of what we're gonna work on, honestly. All right, so this is our AI Analyst Plus repo. It's like our AI open source AI Analyst repo, but it's like the currently active developed one. So the AI Analyst repo we released, I think, in February. We've been constantly developing on it, but in this Plus repo, and we'll probably push some of this stuff out to open source soon. But anyone who's in any of our courses, they get access to this private repo as well. What I'm going to show you today, I don't even think is pushed into main on that one, but there's a skill here, North Star, and it has, we could take a look at it. It has, I'll just read this out to you for now. But at the high level description of it, North Star metric, it's a North Star metric lifecycle coach. It helps PMs design, audit, defend. Doesn't have to be PMs, it could be anyone. Diagnose and evolve their team's strategic anchor metric across their North Star metric journey. It's cited, so it remembers the product across sessions. It grounds every claim in the Amplitude Playbook, which we're partnering with them today. It's curated to that casebook. And then it just has some things like what it'll trigger here. But it has a few different procedures it runs. Audit. So in this case, a user has a candidate metric already, and they want to go through like evaluating to see if it's good or bad, see if it's weak or strong. We're going to run the audit today. It's the primary thing we'll run through. We'll also run through drivers, I think, if we have time. A triage should a user once like, is this even worth the audit? So this is like just like a quicker run of it. Although honestly, the audit takes not that long. You'll see. Explain. User wants a cited explanation of a North Star metric concept. So this is a little bit different where we went with this one. Rather than having just like a single skill that has kind of all the information in it, we have a whole like Wikipedia of concepts and beliefs of cases that to point back to strong North Star metrics of anti-patterns, right? Like gap thinking, insisting on multiple North Star metrics. So it's like, it's not just how to like create your metric. It's like all these things that happen in real life. Debates, it has different information for different verticals like consumer subscription versus dev tools versus B2B SaaS. So this thing goes into pretty far depth, and you can basically have it explain any concept to you as a teacher, as well as when it makes any decision, it'll cite where it's pulling that from. Um, Draft, this is something I'm still kind of working on, but this is like when you want to design one from scratch and you don't have something to audit. Usually where you want to start with is working with your team and trying to come up with a few yourself, and then it'll make recommendations off you for you. But having a place to start from is really important. And then yeah, inputs and drivers are pretty similar modes of this skill, where it kind of decomposes the BDEF thing and goes through your history from whatever window of time you select and tells you how much is each of those metrics driving your North Star metric. Okay, so that's the real high level. Yeah, if you join our course, you can go through this more. Eventually we'll get this open source, but it might be a few weeks because we've got some other stuff going on right now. But let's go ahead and go into the demo. So I'm going to, earlier, right, I asked you, like, is DAO a good one or not? So let's see. We're going to use the North Star skill. Come on. If you can't see this that well, you can zoom in on Zoom yourself, so I don't have to zoom in here and zoom out all the time. But we do North Star. I'm going to go into audit mode, and I'm going to give it a metric, DAO. These first few ones should run pretty fast. Later on, it's going to, I think this next one I'm going to run is going to take a little longer, so we can take questions while it's running. So in this case with DAO, so it's opening, it's triggering the skill, right? It knows that it needs to run the audit mode. So it opens this verb under the skill, audit. You can open preview, it's a little easier to run. So when it does this, it pre-filters anything already cleared. So if there's any anti-patterns, it's not even going to run everything downstream. It's pointless to go and run this rubric on it if we already know it's like a anti-pattern metric. So you can see here, pattern refusal confirmed. Anti-pattern page has a real fixed recipe with a concrete reframing example. So in this case, DAO is a really common one that people think are North Star metrics. And so and we can have this explained to us a little bit more, but you can see it refused. DAO match a canonical bad pattern. We'll ask it about this actually in a moment. It counts logins, not value received. So it climbs with notifications, required logins, or addictive patterns without improving customer outcomes. So it conflates value delivery sessions with vanity sessions. You can definitely define something where you have this is a DAO of a value delivery session. Then you have to define what a value delivery session is. That's fine. But DAO as itself, it's going to reject that as a vanity metric. So it has a test here. If a metric only goes up, counts raw activity, and you can't explain in one sentence how its movement reflects customer value, it's probably a vanity metric. And then it gives you some other options. So try replacing daily active users with the value delivering action a user takes when the product worked for them. This way, happy deliveries dropped people opening the app in favor of deliveries with no issue, which research shows correlated with retention and CLTV. And then it sources everything, right? So we could go into the wiki cases, happy deliveries, and you can read all through this kind of case study around why this is a better metric to use. So we try and really, for this one, So you're gonna get people who ask you why this, why that. We really try and like ground everything in like research that's already done, studies that have already been done. Um, so you're not making this is just like this is just isn't new stuff. So we don't need to start from scratch. Now if we want, we could even have it explain some of this stuff. Oh, it even recommends it here, right? So it says next steps. Uh, you can either we're going to do this actually. We can first have it explain it like, oh, we want to dig into why activity versus value. Maybe we're like pushing back on this. So we'll say North Star explain. And you can look if you wanted to look at the explain verb over here. So basically what this does, it kicks off an agent, the librarian agent, and that agent is going to go read through our glossary and articles and resolve the kind of the concept that we're asking about. If you want to look at agents, let me close some of this stuff. There's an agents folder down here. And we have a special group of agents that are all around North Star. And you can read more about like what that agent does here. So the dispatcher gives you a resolved article, adapts the format to the expertise level. So we can have more in-depth or high-level explanations, applies all the citations to different cases or to the Amplitude playbook. Yeah, it surfaces if there's debate around this topic, and there's a whole thing in our knowledge base around debate because everything's not cut and dry. Everything's not, people have different opinions, so you don't have to. You can make your own opinions on your own by reading through the debates. But what it gave us here is it says, vanity metrics North Star. A lot of this is going to reiterate what it already just told us, but in a little bit more depth. Yeah, so we already read basically the decision rule and the high level thing before. DAO, ad impressions, downloads, page views, registered users, story points delivered. Yeah, these all have like, oh yeah, story points like feature factory stuff, right? Time on page. Each of these kind of share that same shape of a raw activity count, standing in for value. And I just guarantee I've been on teams where these are the North Star metrics every time. Like, but they are actually they're so gameable. Um, and then so the fix they say is like I said before, like, yeah, you could tweak it. You could try to be like, hey, a daily active user that actually gets this value. But actually the fix is more like just find what that action, that value action was. And that's probably your North Star metric. Okay, so that's a little bit around vanity metrics, a little bit about how the audit works and triggers when you get one. So it is a lot of it's brought in from the Amplitude playbook, Nikita, but there's also a bunch of other resources around metrics. So that's not the only source, but it is a lot of it is derived from that and is derived from the cases that's based on because that playbook itself cites a lot of material, so it goes into that source documentation as well. And it's kind of something that's ever expanding as well. But it's a pretty good playbook. Okay, so let's reframe to another thing. So instead of DAO, we're gonna do where are we at time? We're pretty good, I think. We're gonna do North Star. This is gonna take a little while to run, so we can go into some questions while this happens. Audit, and we're gonna do weekly completed orders. Okay, so now I'll try and do a real one. This time it should run the full like seven question check. Those four that really matter. If we talked about, and then the deal breakers, customer value, leading indicator. You can actually move it. It's not a vanity. And if it flags anything, like if it's soft, like completed orders is a little generic on strategy. Um, that's the tool, being honest with us, not rubber stamping whatever we type. We actually we don't want this thing to be sycophantic when we're creating metrics. So this is kind of make it hard on us. Okay, so it did not pick it up as a vanity metric, so it is not refused. It is going to keep going with it. NovaMart is this data set we use. It's a synthetic data set we built. It's like an e-commerce site. It's just flagging here that e-commerce isn't one of the industries we have put into the industry list here. So it needs to kind of like reason through that on its own, which is why we are leveraging agents, and it's not just like a pure DAG, because sometimes stuff's going to miss, but it's smart enough to figure out what's good for e-commerce. Okay, while this is running, because this is going to be a little bit, do we have any questions? Any questions coming through the chat? Yeah, James, that's the right one.
I think Valens had a question earlier. I don't quite recall what the context was. Valens, do you want to ask?
Oh no. That was just a comment to someone else in the chat. You can skip that one.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks. If anyone has other questions, feel free. It doesn't have to be North Star metric or related to, could be pure agentic analytics related. All right, so you can see it's going through the questions here, right? So customer value.
You have your hand up.
Yeah. What's up?
So with a lot of these metrics, how much help or how do you suggest providing context, I guess, around the business that you're at? Like, do you actually suggest doing that, like throwing together some sort of a markdown or something saying, this is my business, this is kind of where it's at, to like also guide that conversation? Or like right now, I'm assuming I don't see that context for like what your business is specifically.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that. So it does have like some let's see, some kind of businesses in here, but it's nowhere near exhaustive. It's just like some examples, and they're pretty high level. Like it has like, because like each type of business is going to kind of play a different type of game in a way. Like e-commerce is kind of like a transaction game where it's like we're just trying to get people to have more transactions, buy more stuff. A say like a social media site is more of like an attention or engagement game. We want people on there. They're getting entertained, right? They're not there to become more productive. And so for your business, the more you can add, and you can make like a full wiki on your business and clear out all this other stuff, that's going to help it have the context of like what metric is most relevant to you. Like I worked previously in legal tech, and I don't think there's anything on here for legal tech. So we need to build that out if we were to use it there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, it finished the checklist. So what it did is it went through those 7 questions that I showed you in the slides earlier, and it actually said it passes as a North Star metric, but it's weak. So it had 5 of 7 checklist criteria pass. There's no fatal failures. So like the 4 fatal questions, customer value, not vanity, actionable, can't remember wherever the other one is, measurable, like it passed all of those, but it didn't pass all 7. So okay, and it actually says like this is one of the reasons it says weak for vanity. We can complete orders isn't classic vanity. It counts a paid transaction, not a login, but it's issue blind. It counts orders regardless of returns, defects, or late delivery. And then it gives you a fix. So this is pretty good, right? So the fix would be add a value received qualifier, weekly completed orders with no issues, meaning they're on time, not returned, and no escalation. That's a pretty strong North Star metric over just like pure orders. So you can see it gets pretty deep. Like if I was on a team, it's like, first of all, like, would we have gone to orders over just like active users? I don't know. But if we did get there, I don't know that we would have necessarily filtered out like um, returns and such. And then vision strategy, it also said this is a bit weak. It says generic, could be any stores, North Star metric, non-fatal, optional, polish. So I think this probably is where it comes in to be like kind of like you just said, Valens, like providing more context. It could probably give us like a better fix on something that's more specific to this specific e-commerce site. I don't know, like if there's some sort of order or some sort of product they really like specialize in or something. Okay, and then it saves a more in-depth readout of everything here in a markdown file. And so, you can go through and read in more detail if you wanted to around like, did it pass or fail or just like partially pass each of the questions and then why that occurred. And then for the ones that it failed, what is the way to fix it? So it gave us like a very like one-liner fix here. We can see goes into more detail around how to fix it. And then it also ties you back to always any sort of kind of like relevant stuff in the industry or cases. So it gives you similar cases, gives you some recommended next steps. Okay. And then this frozen context block thing, once you run this thing for a certain metric, I cleared this out before we came here, but it then saves it into a JSON file. So next time if someone runs it, it can just be like, oh, like you ran this last week. We don't need to wait 5 minutes. We already know the answer to this, and they'll just draw it up for us. Okay, 15 minutes. I think we're good. I want to show you guys a little deeper demo. So let's say we have actually decided we're gonna move forward with this, and now what we want to do is we want to understand the drivers of this North Star. So we're going to say North Star. This one might take a little longer, so we can do questions again. Where we will run through some slides and come back. So North Star drivers, what was it called? Weekly completed orders. And it might have some follow-up questions based on the metric. But it's going to kick off this driver's workflow, which if you wanted to, again, you could read about this skill up here. Yeah. So purpose is to decompose what drove the North Star window over that breadth, frequency, efficiency, and depth. So it's giving me a follow-up questions. It's basically asking if I want like a full, like what date window I want to look at, right? Because the we're now getting into something like hey, what's driving a North Star? It's going to be like what's driving it over a certain time period, because that can obviously change over time. We're going to say we want the full past year. This data is fictional, but there's like a few years of data, I think 2023, 2024. So it should pick like the 2024, Jan to December. So it's going to basically decompose this into those four. Okay. That was way too fast. What happened is I ran this earlier, so it just picked up my last run, actually. But what it would, and that's probably fine because we only have 12 minutes left anyways. But basically what it would do when you do drivers, I'm telling it, take weekly completed orders as a North Star, break down what drove it this year. Um, it's pulling the orders, breaking that metric into the levers we just talked about, and looking what actually moved over the year. And then it hands me back an actual report, not just like the numbers um, in the terminal. So you can see it has this report here. What it found, or the orders grew 6 times over the year, which on the face of it looks like a fantastic year, right? But when you look at the breakdown, almost all of that growth, like 99% of it, is coming from one single lever, which is just more buyers showing up. So how often people come back to buy didn't really move. The size of the average order, AOV, which is our depth guardrail here, actually went down about 9%. And the membership program that's supposed to bring people back in is like sitting at 3% or 2%. So it's like basically not moving or adding anything to the North Star metric itself. So that's interesting, right? Like the headline number is telling you it was a great year, but when you actually read the breakdown, what it's actually saying is you're growing by kind of like renting new customers. You're not keeping any of them. And the one lever you'd use to fix that of trying to get people to return seems to be broken. So it's the same 6x either way. The number can't tell you which one of those was true by itself, which is why you have to look at the inputs, which kind of goes back to what was Nikita was talking about, where it's like, okay, if we're going to prioritize work right now, we know breadth is good. We can get a one-time person to come buy stuff really easily. We're actually seeing a ton of growth in there, but we're not having returning customers. And then whatever these customers are buying over time is actually decreasing in their value. So, you probably want to look at frequency and obviously depth as things you want to increase here, and efficiency too. But breadth, you're good. Okay, I think we had some slides on that, but we could just skip through them. Yeah, I was just going to talk through what it said. Yeah, step back. Everything I showed you, grading the metric, breaking it down throughout the year by the different input metrics, writing the report. The AI did that like really quick, right? Like it does it in minutes. What it can't do is then decide, it can't really decide what you measure in the first place. Your team, your company has to like come up with that context to start with. I'm working a little bit on having it just like come up with metrics for you from the start based on like kind of like the industry practices. Haven't kind of rolled that out yet, but it's still going to be unique to whatever your team within your company is doing, especially if you're trying to do something new that people haven't done before. They can't look at that the North Star metric just like on its own and know like whether to celebrate or worry. It has to drive it down to those input metrics. And then the judgment around like, hey, looking at these input metrics, which one of these should we prioritize a team works on based on like how much lift that's going to be? That's again, like that's the human's decision. So everything else kind of stays the same, but it's pretty good at like helping you create a strong metric and understanding what's driving it. So if you want to learn more about the kind of like building these systems and also how to figure out like that kind of human decision part I just talked about. So turning data into a decision and not just a chart. There's a couple ways to do that. We have a boot camp. We have it coming up tomorrow, actually. And then another one, we're trying it a little different with a boot camp tomorrow. We have a boot camp for a week, weekdays in July for mornings for a couple hours. That's where you build an agentic analytics system yourself. And then we have a follow-on, that's our advanced AI analytics course in the end of June. And that's like taking it more into production. So it's getting into validation, context engineering, multiple models. And then we have our 5-week builders course that kicks off on Monday. the next time it kicks off is in August. That's how to frame questions. Basically, it's an entire week on this kind of stuff we talked about today, but then it gets into obviously how to frame questions, pick the metric, and dig into the data. But then in the subsequent weeks, it goes into like root cause analysis, correlative analysis, trend analysis, segmentation. And week 4, it gets into causal inference and experimentation. In the 5th week, it gets into presentation and sharing out with stakeholders. The overlap between these courses, James, I'd say is just the main overlap is basically just like setting up, installing Claude
The
Code.
3 of us is the overlap.
Yeah, the 3 of us is the overlap. You guys are the overlap because you're gonna take them on. No, I'm just kidding. Although we do have a 2-for-1 deal with the 5-week in the first, like the build it course, not the scaling one. But the overlap truly is just that in the beginning of the bootcamp, we just make sure everyone's got Claude Code installed, can clone the repo and run through the analyst the first time. And we do that same thing in like week 2 of the 5-week course, but everything else is different. So the build it and scale it are all about building agentic systems. So it's more around development. And then the AI analytics for builders, this is more about learning the analytical frameworks. So it's pretty similar to what we did today, actually. We spend, I would say, about 70% of the time, 60% of the time teaching the kind of like best in class analytics thinking and framework end to end. And then we teach you the remaining, whatever, 30% of like, okay, how do you execute all that? Leveraging AI or agentic systems rather than writing SQL or Python or R directly. Yeah, so that's, I don't know if that answers your question. And then we do run a 2-for-1 deal. So you save builder bundle bootcamp in advance. Yeah, okay. And then so the if you do the builders class, the 5-week class, we toss in the build it one for free. And so yeah, it's basically a 2-for-1 deal. I think they pair really nicely. They're complementary. They don't really overlap. You can do one before the other. You could do the bootcamp this weekend and then decide you want to take the 5-week course 6 months from now. And I just take whatever you paid for the bootcamp this weekend and deduct it from that. You could take the 5-week course on Monday and then decide you want to take the bootcamp 6 months from now. And I just add you to the bootcamp for free, or you can add them both at the same time. Yes. And then we also do a discount with the advanced course if you take the bootcamp and then want to move on to advanced. There's some codes down here. Any of these, if you want to take them solo, you get 20% off. But if you take the 5-week, you should just take the bootcamp as well because it's free. So today, yeah, I'll send the recording out in, I don't know, not too long. The price for bootcamp plus builder, so it's 1,800 is the builders course. The 5-week course is 1,800, and then we put in the bootcamp for free, so it's 1,800 for both. So you save yourself $900. The bootcamp on its own is 900, and then you can do 20% off too. So if you just want to take the bootcamp, it's actually like 720 or something. And if you guys want to have more questions about that, you can DM me in Slack or on LinkedIn or email me. I'll drop my email in the chat. Yeah, bootcamps this weekend and then again in July. We're doing some new stuff with the bootcamp, so we really take the feedback from people who've gone through the cohort seriously, and we iterate a lot each time. We'll continue to iterate. We do it for a couple of reasons. One is because we're learning what people want. So we want to like constantly iterate on the feedback with that. Also, the industry is moving so fast. So we just are adding new stuff to the bootcamp all the time. Like we're going to add some stuff on open source this round, for instance. because it seems like those models are really catching up. And also, I don't know if you guys have used like the Fable model. It's really freaking expensive. Like it just like eats your tokens. So I feel like there's also like we want to be on your side and make sure that at your company you're just making like the best decisions and not just like on the newest best model because it's the newest best model, but actually be on the thing that works, gets your job done, which I would say is like a few model releases ago right now, like probably Opus 4.6. And then it says, can this be run in VS Code with Claude as plugin, or does it need Claude Code IDE installation? Yeah, you run VS Code. I run in VS Code, but I do it in terminal on there rather than the plugin. And then the terminal, the other reason to do that is because like you don't necessarily want to be tied to Anthropic models. You might want to use Google models or OpenAI or open source models too. We're not going to get that fully into that in Bootcamp. We'll get to a little bit. The advanced Bootcamp, we'll spend a bunch of time on that. Something else we're testing for this Bootcamp too is we're going to have 2 days. We usually just do 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, 4 hours a day. We are going to add a bunch of bonus content this time based on the kind of questions we get from people. We always get questions around open source, context management, and validation, and data warehouse connections. So throughout the week, after Sunday, the bootcamp doesn't really stop. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to be releasing async content on those 4 topics: validation, context management, open source model, and data warehouse connections. We'll have practice exercises. So those are optional. Bonus, we want you to be able to like have it sink in as you use it at work. And then Friday at the end of the week, we're gonna have optional office hours. So you can do the boot camp on the weekend, apply it at work throughout the week, go through the async content. And then on Friday, if you want, we can answer a bunch of questions live. Of course, the Slack's always open too. And then in July, we're experimenting even more where we are not going to host it on the weekend. We're going to host it on weekdays. So it's not a like intense 4 hours, but we'll do like 2 hours each morning. And then you can like go apply stuff at work all day or on your own personal projects and then come back the next day, ask questions. And it's a little more piecemeal that way. Maybe we'll experiment with other stuff in the future if there's other ideas. Okay, I know we're at 1. I can stay over because I quit my job last week, so this is all I do. But if other people have jobs to get to, that's cool. No worries. But I can stay over if people have questions. I don't think I had anything else here. Yeah, my last slide's questions. Oh yeah, I'll send out the recording, of course, and I'll send out the PDF. I'll send out the PDF today with everything. The recording, either tomorrow, I'll probably send it out. And then I had that little like worksheet thing that just has the questions and stuff to ask. I'll send that out today too. And then sometime in the next few weeks, if for those of you who aren't joining our courses and don't have access to AI Analyst Plus, I think in the next few weeks or a month or something, we'll probably open source all that. When that happens, I'll kind of blast out our whole email list, which all of you are on, so you can get access to that too. But if you want it sooner, yeah, you would get it basically tomorrow if you join the course. Questions? No questions is fine too.
I think Nikita had a question
Oh,
about,
yeah.
so according to this framework, does the North Star metric change over time?
Oh, yeah. Like, so your North Star metric is definitely going to change over time. And that's why we have this like audit thing. So like it just depends what your team's working on and your team's mission. I guess like if your team's mission is consistently like the same thing, then like yeah, it might stay the same for a long time. I would say you want to audit your North Star metric quarterly. I'd say the first time you make your North Star metric, you want to audit it weekly for like the first month or month and a half to see if you actually picked a good one, if you've never created one before. Because it's really easy to be like, this is the best, everyone agrees. And then you start building stuff and then you see the actual data and how it's moving. And it's like, do some analysis and it's actually not a great metric, and you kind of flag all these other things. And then I would say probably revisit it quarterly if you're kind of like what your team's working on and your mission stays like the same. It's probably not going to change much. Could last throughout the entire year. At a very minimum, you definitely want to visit it annually. But I would say like any quarterly planning cycle, think about your North Star metric again, and then you can like rally around it for that quarter. Depends on like the cycle of like the product and company you're working on too. Okay. Other questions? Cool. All right. This is great. Hey, thanks for the 20 of you who stayed over. And oh, how to define North Star metrics in the B2B space? Yeah, I think it's just like it's just gonna be like when you have B2B, like B2B is when it actually becomes really important to create a North Star metric because it's so easy to get caught up in like I'm just developing for like the loudest customer in the room. But like it's the same thing. You want to do it at the user workflow kind of level, and hopefully your prod dev teams are kind of organized in such a way that each of them are focused around a user workflow. So like um an example of like a good North Star metric for one of the team I used to work on, where we were automating out part of someone's workflow, trying to make it faster. And so it was like time from the start to the finish of a successfully completed task without any like errors in it. But it's like it's I would say like yeah, think of like what is the user trying to do in the real world, and then how can we reflect the success of what they're trying to do in the real world within our product, and then what are metrics that can basically reflect that action in our product. Yeah, balance.
So I got another question on this is more on the AI Analyst lab, and I'm trying to think about how to apply it, like pick a pet project. And so my area I'm trying to pick is employee engagement surveys, like around an HCM, go
Mm.
through the analysis process. So is the AI Analyst, the free repo you guys have, a good starting place to sort of kind of build that out and learn more about like how you set up that repo and adapting it? Or, I mean, are there any gotchas or places? And I can post this in the Slack too. Just thought I wanted to ask that.
I think it would be pretty good for employee engagement survey, like, because that's not going to be, I think that actually be a really good place to start because that's going to be like either one table or like a CSV or something. You're not gonna have to worry about adding a bunch of like semantic models around like, hey, you have to join to these different tables. Although you could if you wanted to like learn specifics about employees later. So I think that'd be a pretty good start. I would basically download that CSV or can within into the repo and then start kind of like asking like what question or asking it to like profile the data. There's like a data profiler function, and then start asking it like, can you help me frame some questions around, and then give it some topics and start from there and see where it goes.
Okay. And my next step was is thinking about it like in a wider platform of like an HCM system where now you have like payroll and like job promotions and stuff like that. That's when you start looking at like, okay, defining the table schemas for what those other tables are and some of those other, I think there were schemas and you mentioned something else too, right?
Yeah, there's
Uh,
gonna be like, yeah, you'll want like the schemas. You'll want to have like kind of like these semantic models and kind of like knowledge bases around kind of what we were talking about earlier, the context of your company, like what are the metrics that make sense? What are the definitions to all of these things? Like there's just going to be so
yeah,
much stuff that it can kind of take guesses at it, but it will need
yeah,
you to kind of like formalize in a
yeah.
document somewhere in the repo that it can like read every time. So it's not guessing every time.
Yeah. And then just the last one, what do you recommend for like do you just recommend raw CSVs if you're just trying to like synthesize data to like play with and like check? test how well it works and like kind of verify? Is that
I think it's a good place to start, but you can connect to like a data warehouse or something pretty
okay?
easily, and it'll run SQL for you. Obviously, there's just like a couple more hoops you have to jump through to like do that connection. But
Yeah.
as long as it's not, I mean, if it's sensitive like information, you probably don't want to like download the CSV onto your computer or something. But like if it's not something
It
that's
would be
like,
synthesized and fake. It would be synthesized and fake
then
in
I
order
think,
to
yeah, yeah, I would just play with it in CSVs to start. That's what, yeah. I mean, in our like bootcamp stuff, we make like a local database that it queries and stuff, since that's like a little more what a lot of people are going to use it for. But a lot of the time when I'm analyzing data, I'll just like download some stuff from the internet as a CSV. If there's multiple tables, I'll make it create a DuckDB database. It's really good at that. But
okay.
if it's all in one place, yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Yeah, I think James, there's an interesting thing there around like, yeah, customer requirements. I mean, I'm sure you could create there's like customer wants and there's customer needs, and one of them provides real value, right? And so it's like this is like just like a hard thing with B2B of like, am I building something that provides value to multiple customers, or is just this something that this one person really wants and then they're gonna leave? That's just like a balancing act for any B2B company that they have to make a decision on. But I think like, something like finance compliance or something where there's like true compliance things, I think you could make a like did this you go through and ask the North Star metric thing to run this. But like I'm sure it has some stuff in there because there's a whole fintech industry thing it has where it's like I bet there's like a thing like how fast um and how often do you run through like this without hitting any like I don't know, compliance issues in the workflow. I don't know because I don't work in that space, but I can imagine there's probably something like that. We're going to talk about that a bunch in week 1 of the builders course, though. And then the other thing with the builders course, just to give you guys a little more detail, it's a little different from the boot camp. The boot camp's all live, except for this bonus material we're making. The reason it's all live is because the industry is moving so fast that when we're teaching people how to build agentic systems, like I don't really want to spend a bunch of time recording myself teaching that for it to change in 2 months and have to record again. That's why we do that all live. Uh, the 5-week course, a lot of that is around kind of like best in practice industry standards for like analytical thinking and applying these stuff that hasn't changed for a long time. It's a little more like evergreen. And so what we do is all of the lesson material is async. They're anywhere from a 5 to a 20-minute videos, about 3 to 4 hours per week. 1 hour is like you should watch all this, and then there's like 3 hours of kind of optional async content, totally self-paced through the 5 weeks. Um, and then we have live office hours for 3 hours a week, where we do more Q&A and discussion about whether we talked about that week or what we talked about in prior weeks. Just depends on who comes. And we stagger those office hours based on the time zones of the students who are in the course. So we'll kick it off in the morning Pacific time for the first week, but then we'll do a poll and we'll pick office hours based on who's in there. So like, yeah, like it's probably going to be like evening, morning, so we can hit every time zones. But we'll talk a lot. We could talk in extreme depth about kind of your specifics of like B2B SaaS metrics there in those live office hours. Or, we talk in another free thing here at some point. All right. My wife has called me 3 times in the past 5 minutes, so I think I have to leave. I just keep rejecting her phone call on my watch here, so I don't know what's going on, but I think I have to go. But thanks everyone for joining. And thanks for all the engaging questions. And I think next Friday, we have one on validating validating the output of agentic analytics platforms. That'll be pretty good to be like kind of like similar thing to like today. We'll talk about framework and then do a little bit of stuff in Claude Code. So check that out. Hopefully, I'll see you there. Thanks, everyone.